Find your path with the knowledge of others and become an illuminator for those who struggle. Guide their way just by being true and being in alignment, because it comes naturally to you. On self-discovery wisdom, we share to find inspiration with lessons for millions. We hope you listen.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living, right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest, repeat guest, is Kathleen Tonnesen, Art Beyond Sight. Now, she is an artist searching for creative ways to overcome life obstacles, and how Shioda Yoshinkan, could you pronounce that for me, darling?
Shioda, Yoshinkan, Aikido.
Aikido, and it helped her see beyond the light. In her previous interview, 2018, I can't believe it's been that long, we publicly shared about her journey with vision loss, an experience that she found deeply helpful. Since then, practicing Shioda, she has opened a new path into her rehabilitation and artistic development. Kathleen believes that the discipline and intense focus of Aikido has helped her retain her right eye to read, draw, and paint again, although it is her personal experience rather than medical conclusion that she feels the practice may have helped her brain develop new pathways and delayed the progression of her vision loss. So since 2023, she has continued forging new artistic paths. Her works reflects her change in vision and explores light, balance, geometry, human interaction, and connection beyond sight. Her focus is on developing skills that expand the creative boundaries of the heart and the mind. She says your life is an unfolding rose of the bouquet of God's love. She has a current art exhibition going on right now, August 7th to August 29th, on a pop-up gallery on 1157 Pendra Street, Vancouver, BC, British Columbia. That is in Canada, folks. It's worthwhile coming down, looking at the art, and while you're here, enjoy Vancouver. It's a beautiful city. And to this solo exhibition, she explores the felt sensation of balance, timing, posture, geometry around Shioda's work. These works also are presented alongside a large botanical painting celebrating color, creativity, resilience, and the continuing evolution of her sight. She's a self-taught painter, sculptor, author, poet, and inventor. Born in Cape Town, South Africa. I lived there 11 years, beautiful place. She migrated to Canada in 1998. A professional artist since 1990, she creates meaningful, thoughtful work that enriches public spaces and connects communities. So it's so delightful to have you back here again, love, and also to see that you are a pure example of never give up and never give in. Just find another way. And you have found another way. Here it has been 8 years since we did our last show. And, you know, obviously still eye challenges, but you are determined to keep, I think it's like what you see from the inside, you're determined for your eyes to see on the outside. And you've managed to channel that.
Just as a recap for anyone who doesn't know the backstory. So I was born with a deep amblyopia in my left eye. So it means that if I look at you, I can see the shape of your hair, the shape of your body, but I can't see your face. So everybody's got the same face. So that was just born like that. The doctors say there's nothing wrong with the actual eye. It's just not connected to my brain. So there's nothing they can do to make that be corrected in any way. So that's the left eye. With the right eye, it's a different color. So the green eye is the left eye. My right eye gets more and more blue as time goes on, and that's because it has also, which I had congenital. So it was before birth or just after birth. They don't know. And that is a disease of the iris, and it's called Fuchs heterochromic iridocyclitis. So if you can imagine, your iris opens and closes depending on light. So in bright light, mine just like stays open. So it's very painful at the back of my eye. And it has a number of other problems to it, which they don't know too much about, except that in 2007, my optometrist said, oh, you need to go see the ophthalmologist. I just want him to have a look at your eye. So I duly went off. I didn't ask any questions because I thought he must know what he's talking about. And I was completely unprepared. The ophthalmologist had a good look at my eye, and then he just snapped his hands, rolled back on his chair, and said, so Dr. So-and-so is quite correct. You're going blind. And it was the first I'd heard of it. And it was like getting a death blow. At the time,
Yes.
I'd come through a divorce. I was financially poor. I'd created a project of peace and compassion for our USA neighbors after September 11th, which had taken up a large chunk of my time, my money, and had caused immense strain upon my family. And so, which resulted in a divorce. And now I was told, oh, you're going blind. And they said, we don't know if it's today, tomorrow, or the next day. But, this is your future's dark. Go on the internet, and knowledge is power. So I went home in shock, and I went on the internet. I tried to join a support group, and they wrote back and said, you're not blind enough. So I was just at a loss. I felt like I was
What?
falling down Alice in Wonderland's, eternal demise into this
Right.
well of a land that I didn't know what to expect. And so also at the time, I had not had academic credentials. And so I'd always create in South Africa, I'd created a very large murals. So my crowning glory was a 50 square foot ceiling dome within a private home. I created this chariot race with horses going around. And when I came to Canada, I wanted to, resurrect myself professionally as a large scale mural painter. And anyway, so now that wasn't an option. And so in order to get paying work, I ended up having to go back to college. And so I joined a government program for early childhood educators, and I started my studies at Douglas College. And I was an old lady in a class of these young kids from 18 to 25, and I felt old and miserable and worthless. And I was just like, I can't believe my life has come to this. But then I thought, I hadn't finished school because I had grown up believing I was stupid. All I could do was sing, dance, and act and paint, and that wasn't it wasn't respected
Recognized as an,
yeah,
yeah.
by family, friends, and the world at large as anything worthwhile. So I thought, well, this is a great chance to actually fix my academic record. Now I can get a diploma in early childhood education, and so I thought, these other young people, they don't know the content, and so I don't know the content. So let me communicate and connect and make new friends through the content and lose my own ego and feelings of whatever happened before in my life. And so I did that, and I made great friends with my professors who were incredible. And I got really good marks, and my professor encouraged me to go on to get a degree because she said in 10 years' time, in order to work in the early childhood profession, right now you have to have a diploma, but you're going to need a degree because that's the way things are going. So just go and get it, because otherwise you're 10 years older and you're stuck again. So I thought, well, what on earth will I study that I'm really interested in if I'm going to borrow more money from the government to do this and then get into debt? So I thought, well, I've been reading psychology books since I was 16 because I was trying to fix my own life. And I'm extremely excited and interested in the brain. And so I found neuropsychology, which is how your behavior affects your biology and how your biology affects your brain. And having my left eye, I was always interested in, wasn't there a way for me to fix my eye? And I like to unpack things as an artist. I'm always unpacking large, complex topics and then unpacking them into small parts, so I can understand them. And also, if you can teach them to my
Yes.
children, to anyone. So that was a natural path for me. And then I thought, when push comes to shove, if I um, did lose all my sight and I went into the dark, I could still hear, fortunately. And so I could always become a counselor and I could then support myself financially doing that. So these are all, just practical ways of trying to find a way to create a life for myself. Um, so I went at it and I worked really hard. I didn't have a social life. I went studying, I worked in childcare, and I did that for a number of years. And then I, was always doing my art and trying to be an entrepreneur on the side with other projects that I was trying to raise funding for. And then the way I came into martial arts was after September 11th. I was just crushed, as most people were. And as an artist, I felt moved to try and do something.
Yeah.
And I lived by prayer, and I prayed and I thought, well, I don't have money to send people who are in trouble, but I could create something that might be helpful in the grieving process, even just coming to understand what happened. Let's put it together in a little package so we can go back and look at it. And then when you start to converse about difficult things, you start to get it out of your body, and you
Yes.
start, it's not like you heal and it's a miracle, you're healed and your grief is gone or your shock is gone, but your brain starts to make sense of things.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I could address the political event of the day with the different things that happened in a historic tribute to all the lives lost, with deep respect to those who lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. I was
Yep.
very moved by the firefighters were going and rushing into buildings where the visuals we were getting in the media was all the people running
Coming out.
and they were covered in the sacred dust of others. So for me, it was a pivotal thing that happened to my intrinsic being, because 1 year prior, and I have to be very specific about this because people get it mixed up. No, I did not lose my sister in September 11 Twin Towers attack. No, my experience of grief was in 2000, a year before, where unfortunately my sister, she had been on antidepressants. She had been grieving from the loss of the suicide of her son, and she was trying to come off antidepressants, but she had suicidal thoughts, and unfortunately a contributing factor was a medication, the grief, overcoming the grief of her son, and she shot herself. So that was my experience of first time in my life, but of a deep-seated grief within the cells of my being, where every cell in my body was in pain. And it was the most incredibly teaching experience to me of how alive each cell in your body is. That it's not just, oh, your heart is sad, oh, I'm having a cry. Every cell in my body was in pain. And so that was my experience of grief. And just to put my foot on the ground caused pain. And I thought, this is just weird. How do I function as a mother, as a wife, in my capacity as a friend, when I'm so pained inside my body and it's from this grief? And how do I move through through this quickly so I can get back to running my family. And so I was bedridden with my grief. I tried various ways to move through it. Obviously my health then impacted my daughter. She was a young teenager. I couldn't be the mother she wanted me to be because I was incapacitated within my own self. It affected my son. It clearly affected the relationship with my husband. But I was just, it was just in this vortex of pain, and I didn't know how to move through it. And if you go to the doctor, they just want to chuck pills at you, and it didn't. That wasn't what it. That wouldn't help.
No.
I needed to sleep. I needed to exercise. I just needed to take each day, and get back to the practicality of running a family, which I did. So I managed to get all those things going. But inside of me, there was just this pain and this deep void. And so and then I thought of, God, how do I escape this pain? So, I started to have thoughts of like, I don't know, just running away, running away from this pain. And I thought, this can't be. So I just prayed and prayed and prayed. And I did. I just made myself go through each day. But emotionally, I was absent from my daughter's needs. And unfortunately, that did have a repercussion in that, we ended up being estranged thereafter for many years and couldn't quite get back, although I've tried. But so that was my experience of grief, where it's just like a left ball that comes and hits you and spirals you out into a space that is unknown. And then how do you come back? And then, of course, this whole year later, it was almost a year later to the day, these Twin Towers came down. And my first thought when I saw the media was, oh my God, everyone who's died has an aunt, an uncle, a sister, a child, a friend, somebody who loves them, who's going to go through now what I've just managed to come through in this last year, so I can put myself together as a functioning human. And I thought, I don't want anyone to experience what I've just experienced. It's horrible. So that was also part of my prayer, was how do I give somebody something that would ameliorate or even help them to not have to go through what I just gone through. And so that was, my art. So I got this vision. I did get a vision. I saw a media picture of the last standing 3 fronds of the steel. And to me, it was like it was just so spiritual. And so I got this vision, and then I thought, well, what do you want to do? I was like, well, why do people fight? I mean, fighting made this happen. Fighting kills. So why do people fight? And then how do you take the politics of the day, wrap that into the 3 separate events of the Pentagon, the towers, and then, of course, Pennsylvania. And I thought, well, what do I really want to do with this? I said, yes, we want to address the compassion and the event and a way forward and the release of the souls of the people all at once leaving, and then the horror of the day. And so I thought, but I also want to promote peace, and we want this to happen again. So I drew out my sketches, and initially the platform was it was a 4-sided structure to promote peace to all 4 corners of the earth. And then I very shyly, I was a housewife, and at the time, I didn't have much confidence, although I pretended, and people thought that I had a lot. But I sheepishly, and you don't want to tell anyone you saw a vision because they lock you up. So I sheepishly went to my friend who worked in the architectural company. And I said to him, look, because he'd lost his mum when he was 6, and he's a beautiful, lovely man. And I knew he wouldn't laugh at me. And so I went to him and I said, look, I've had this vision and I want to do something. I feel compelled to do something and create something to be of service to our neighbors in the USA, where on whose soil this atrocity occurred. And he said, I want to do something too. And so he took my sketches, and then he said, instead of having the base as 4 corners, make that the pentagon, because then we've addressed the pentagon. And so he then took my sketches, and he put it into a 23-foot high by 18-foot, no, 23-foot wide by 18-foot high sculpture that we could assemble and disassemble, because we didn't know if it would tour, where it would end up. And so we made them out of aluminum. And Dave's Custom Metalworks, a wonderful man too in Port Coquitlam at the time, he heard my story. I spoke to him, and he said, I want to help. And so he got his whole team to create the metalworks for us. And so a team evolved of professional Canadian people. And we got it structurally covered so that there's no problems. Tom Walker from Maple Ridge helped me initially as well to spread the word. And then I created 10-foot tall paintings to represent the Twin Towers. And then on the flip side of the paintings are all the names of the firefighters and public safety personnel, uniformed personnel who lost their lives in the line of duty, and paying respect to them. And then there's a beautiful quote by Chris Gansey on the front. So it's a walk-in sculpture. People can come in and reflect, and maybe for the first time begin to converse with a friend, and to get it out and to start to heal and make sense of the trauma we all mass experienced of that mass murder on that day through the media. And so, and then it evolved into a music with wonderful Canadian musicians working with me with lyrics, which I co-wrote, and music that I heard in my head, which they then put into real compositions. And we created a concert. And so out of this out of this trauma came a beautiful message of healing, compassion, deep respect and honor, and to the survivors and to the families who are left behind. And then the most difficult part was to try and give it away. And I never thought it would be so difficult. And anyway, it was met with terrible political opposition, and then opposition from a multitude of other communities who were creating their own tribute to September 11th. And I hadn't thought of all that. So I stepped into a hornet's nest. But we created this beautiful artwork. We created this community venture of music, of art, of architecture, and engineering, and souls from BC putting out their love to our neighbors. So in my reaching out to try and give it away, because I raised the money for it, a lot of it was my private money, very little was donated, some was. Anyway, Russ D. Messenger, he was a retired from the American Airlines. He'd flown rescue missions, an incredible person, and he was a pilot with American Airlines, and he was looking for artworks from around the world, and he had a vision to build a museum at Ground Zero. So he had a degree in architecture as well, and so he had created a museum architecture, and he was trying to win that prize to have it built. And within his vision, he had a museum of artworks from around the world that were created from like-minded hearts of compassion. So he found out I was told to contact him, so I did. He loved what we'd created. And then he created a World Memorial Charity. And then he said, look, it's going to take a long time to try and find a permanent home for this beautiful 18-foot tall, 23-foot wide sculpture. One of your desires, Kathleen, was to create this piece as a puzzle so that men who work in public safety, it's still dominated by men, and women could come together, and they could bolt the pieces together with hand drills, and they could take the 8 hours it does to put the puzzle together with the 18-foot tall steel metal. And that is an exercise in teamwork, and it will help them to also process their own healing.
Exactly.
And so he said, let me help you to tour it across the USA. So I said, well, that sounds like a great idea. And so we embarked on this journey. But because there was very little money, I had to go to the venues that he said would be suitable, and I had to measure them to see if we could get the pieces
Right.
in and
Yeah.
out, loading and then unloading, and all the permits that required. So he would then give me an air ticket, and I would fly to this venue. I'd measure it, and I'd see if I could get it in and out. And one of the places I went to was in San Francisco, and I was only there for like the night, and then I left in the afternoon, was to measure this library area. And so we'd done one exhibit in Pasadena, and then I caught the train up to San Francisco, and I arrived late at night. I didn't know where I was. I probably ended up in a space that was like the worst part of East Hastings in Vancouver. It's hell on earth. And so I thought, well, I just need somewhere cheap to stay for the night. So I found this cheap hotel. And I was really brave. I was so driven by my prayer and everything. And I was just, well, this is what God wants me to do. I'll get it done. But when I was in this dingy hotel that night and they were renovating it, there were people screaming outside. And it was the first time in my life that I was so scared.
Mhm.
And I put chairs against the door. And then I thought, this is crazy. Here I am giving away this extremely expensive gift. And I found that I had to protect the integrity of the intention of the gift on
Yeah.
all levels, and the integrity of all the people who'd willingly come forward and
Mhm.
given of their time and talents. And then, I'd been met with opposition and the haters and the people who
There's always
thought I
those.
was
Yeah.
doing it for my own money, to
Mhm.
get attention, which was so far from the truth. And I and here I am in another country, and I'm trying to do this good deed, and but I'm put myself in harm's way. I'm staying now in a place that's dangerous. I'm scared, and I suddenly had an epiphany, and I realized, I was really good at protecting everybody else,
Yeah.
particularly children, but I was extremely bad at with good psychological boundaries for me. I was a people pleaser. I pleased everybody,
Yes.
and also I discovered I had a deep intrinsic feeling that I wasn't worth protecting, and I
Mm.
thought, this is crazy. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to continue doing volunteer work, because I can't, it's my nature to be helpful. And I don't like it when people fight. There's always a way to communicate and to
Yes.
talk and to find out what's the
Work it
root cause
out.
of your
Mm.
problem, and let's work it out. And let's move forward, or let's agree to disagree and part
Yeah.
ways. But there's no reason to have hatred, and there's no reason to fight. So I thought I need to learn physical skills just
Mhm.
to self-defense, protect me. And so in that moment, staying in that hotel and all this going through my mind, I thought, oh, Bruss practices, he
Mm.
always says he practices Yoshinkan Aikido. I'll ask him about that, because I didn't want to learn a martial arts where I would poke somebody's eye or break a brick with my forehead. I was just like, oh, gross, I don't want to do that. And so when I saw him at the next event, I said, Bruss, I found I was very scared, and I need self-defense skills. And he said, yeah, go look it up. Not many people teach it. And so I did the next exhibit in San Diego, and I then went home before the next exhibit. And lo and behold, in my community in Maple Ridge, there was Keith Taylor Sheehan, who's an eighth Dan, and he had a Maple Ridge dojo. And oh yeah, and also when I was in the hotel, I'd also discovered that my deep inside fear was my deep fear of men due to my childhood trauma. And so I went to the dojo and I watched, and it was all men. There was like one girl, was 16 and she'd probably been there since a kid because she was a black belt. And I thought, oh, and there was a man full of tattoos and they were 6 foot tall. And I thought, how am I going to do this? Anyway, I watched a class and I thought, no, I've got to learn this. So I joined, and then I went to one class, and then I was too scared to go back. And then I went to another class, and I was too scared to go back, but I kept making myself go. And eventually I got better and better. And I was practicing in my daughter's old judo suit. And anyway, so there I was. And what happened with the Aikido was so helpful, and you learn things so quickly. And Christopher Kearney Sensei and Sheldon Verbeek Sensei, they were so kind to me, and they were so gentle with me. And a gentleman with all the tattoos, I was raised in South Africa, and I was raised in my generation that the only people who have tattoos are people who are criminals and they've been to prison, or
Right.
sailors of ill repute.
Yes, that's our
And so that
generation's
was what
view
I'd
on
been
them. Yeah.
drummed into me since I was a kid. And now when I came to live in Canada, I was sitting in Deep Cove when we first arrived, and there were all these people at this band in the summer, and they were all full of tattoos, and they had like these bodysuits, and they'd taken off their shirts because it was hot. And I pulled my kids close, and I thought, oh my God, they've all been to jail. And I had to learn and unwind that bad information I'd been given as a child. And I had to learn that in Canada, in comparison to South Africa, where we lived, where safety was difficult. So it was a lot of violence, and you were always fearful, and you were always checking over your shoulder. And security was a big concern. You had a fierce dog for security, or someone
We hope
to
that you
yak for
enjoyed the
danger.
show. There are
And
so
here
many
all
more
these people
for you to
taking their
listen to
dogs
right
to
here on
a park with little handkerchiefs
selfdiscoverywisdom.com.
around their necks,
Come and hear
and
the
they were just
illumination
part of the
that's going to shed
family,
light
not
on your
security
path.
dogs. And I had to learn that if people were living in Canada, there was no fear, and they could just relax. And so they could adorn themselves with beautiful artwork that was meaningful to them and had a story at their different progression and time in life. And so they then became walking exhibits of their journey.
That's my daughter. That's my daughter.
Yeah.
She has so many
And the things
tattoos
that
representing the countries and the culture that she's met, right? So for her, it's kind of a representation, you know?
Yeah. And so I started to change my thinking about the tattoos and to see them as artwork in motion. And but anyway, there was this gentleman with all the tattoos, and I was still afraid of men, so we had to work in a group, and then it was my turn to be thrown by him, and I was so scared. Anyway, he was so kind, he was so gentle to me, and unbeknownst to me, the cycle comes right around, and where I train now. So I started around about circa 2005 in Maple Ridge in the Yoshinkan Aikido. And because I had gone to Douglas College in New Westminster, I had changed suburbs, and so I couldn't travel back and forth. I didn't have a car, and so I joined another dojo, and so I was then training with Robert Mustard Shihan in Burnaby, and I was there for three years, and I trained almost 4 times a week. I was just training there because I thought, once I had my Maple Ridge, and I had overcome my fear of men, because I always love to say this, badly behaved men made me afraid of men. Well-behaved men taught me deadly skills to protect myself from bad men.
Yes.
So I thank the beautiful men from the Maple Ridge Aikido BC dojo for helping me to overcome my fear of men. But now I joined the Burnaby dojo with Robert Mustard Shihan, and I was there, and that was intense training. He's very very military. And then once I'd finished my studies at Douglas College, people said, if you want to get ready, well known for your art, you need to be in Vancouver. And so then I moved to Vancouver in the West End to do just that. And I changed dojos, and I trained under Gregory Pun Sensei for 1 year. But he took ill and moved, so then I was stuck. But after that time, after I'd finished training with him, that's when I was walking along the road one day, and just suddenly my right eye went black, just like black. It went ping, and it pained, and it just went black. And I thought, oh my God, today's the day. That's it, lights out. And because I had found the Aikido so helpful to me right up till the end of training in Burnaby. I had wanted to become a teacher because I thought I could teach young girls to have these skills, and young boys, so that they could overcome their fear of anything before they got to their teenage years. So I was already thinking that I wanted to teach this martial art that had helped me so much already. But anyway, now I was walking along, and I thought, well, okay, now I can't do Aikido anymore. I haven't yet completed my degree. So now what do I do? My eye doesn't work, so I can't work in early childhood education. So I was destitute now. I couldn't earn any money. I couldn't do any art. Didn't know how to go forward. And when this happened, they call it a vitreous detachment. That's just the name they give it. They never tell you how to live with the experience. So,
Right.
it's like when you get a flat tire, it's not that you just have a flat tire, your whole car doesn't work.
Right.
So your
Yeah.
whole car has to adjust now to that flat tire, or what's missing in your engine. And so now everything else is trying to adjust to this tool in my toolbox is not working properly. But suddenly I had no means of earning money. I couldn't do anything. And the ophthalmologist said, not to worry, maybe your eye will just give it time, maybe you'll get some vision back. Well, I didn't have time. So I was just lying in my bed, or so waking up. Is it black? Is it there? And anyway, the large, it's just debris. They call it a large central floater, but it doesn't float. So it sits in the center of this right eye, which cut out my central vision. But then I could, on the sort of right side, I could see through little cracks. And then it left me with the bottom left quadrant, so I could only look down. So now my world became down, and my head is down, and the world is down. And I remembered my studies, and if you don't keep your head up, A, you lose your balance. B, if you're not using the parts of your brain that keep your head up and your balance, that just starts to atrophy. So now you're just shutting down your brain, and then you're going to fall more, So all sorts of other things start to happen in your body. And so I would walk around the seawall in Vancouver, and I would just practice my posture of Aikido. I would veer to the right, and then I would overcorrect, but using my Aikido hips. Everything in Aikido is from the hips down. It's the triangle base, and you move your body from your hips, and your central core you move from is just below your belly button. So that's where your power comes. And then the lower part of your spine. So if you just imagine, if you put your hand behind your lower part of your spine and your other hand in front just below your belly button, so that if you push from your back through that front, so it's a pushing motion. And then that pushes your heel, if you go straight down the back of your leg, pushes your heel into the ground. So now you're grounded there. So you've got a very strong pushing force through your body. So that's how you learn to move. It's absolutely nothing to do with shoulder strength, nothing to do with your muscles. So anyone can do it. So
Right.
it was the founder, Murahai Yoshiba. There's a beautiful book, Abundant Peace. I don't know if you can see that, by John Stevens. And if you want to know the history of it, that's Abundant Peace. It'll give you a good background on Murahai Yoshiba. He's the founder of Aikido. But let me just get rid of that so I can see you. And yeah, so I would walk around Stanley Park, and so I would just practice my body movements, gross body movements with the Aikido, pushing through the back, breathing. So if you have to think that you are extending up out the top of your head, so you're extending your spine, and then you opening your rib cage, and so you're breathing, shoulders are down, lats are down. And when you are working with your partner, we have a stay, which is the person being attacked. They're going to do the technique. And then we have an uke, which is the attacker. So these are just Japanese terms. So so you work together, and then one person has a chance to be uke, one person has a chance to be stay, and then you have a good training relationship between the two of you to practice deadly moves. And the to protect yourself. And so I would walk around Stanley Park, just doing my body postures, extending my spine up, and just trying to walk straight without having central vision, only having the bottom quadrant. And so I'm just looking through my peripheral here.
Right.
And anyway, I was doing that. It was lonely, exhausting, isolating. And I just thought, well, I don't know how to go forward. And one day, my friend, I'd sold everything in my apartment, and I was sitting there on had two chairs left, and I was sitting there, and my one friend who I hadn't seen for a long time, I had prayed, "What's my way forward? What do you want me to do?" And I can't believe my life's come to this. And anyway, she phoned me and she said, "I'm coming to see you." And I said, "Okay, but I can't really see properly." So she came and she sat me down, and her name is Lynn Burton, and I'll be forever grateful to her. And because that's why I can do this interview today, so many years later. And she sat me down and she said, "Kathleen, I want you to remember that I used to teach karate to the blind in South Africa." And she's older than me. And I didn't know that. And I said, "You did?" I said, "How did you do that?" She said, "Well, I learned to do it first of all, I learned karate, and then I learned to do it blindfolded. And then her students were completely blind. They didn't even have a bottom quadrant. And she said, I taught them, and they were remarkable. And
Yes.
she said she learned so much about herself and interacting without sight. And she said, phone up your sensei, excuse me, and see if they'll have you back on the mat. And just keep training, and don't lose your goal of becoming a Yoshinkan, a Shioda Yoshinkan Aikido teacher, because you can, as you lose more vision, you can teach other people with low vision and people who are blind this martial art.
You
And
also
so I
gain
thought,
more senses, right? You become more tuned into your other senses.
yeah, and so I phoned up my one friend, Andrew McBride Sheehan, who was training at the Aikido BC other dojo that belongs to Keith Taylor Sheehan, and is at the Japanese language school in Vancouver. And so I said, "Look, I can't see. I'm so traumatized. I don't even know if I'll remember all my moves, but can I start to train again on the mat?" And so he said, "Of course you can. You just come." So I pitched out for my class. So now I started with Keith Taylor, and now I was back at Keith Taylor so many years later. Uh, and they put me to work on the mat. They didn't give me any special treatment whatsoever. I just joined the class. And trauma is a weird thing. There's so much that you remember in your head, and you
Yeah.
get very good at stuff. And then you go through a trauma. You lose your self-confidence, and
Yeah.
with it goes a lot of the information that you used to do. And then you couldn't, you have to try and find all that stuff again, and
Yeah.
rehabilitate it.
Yeah.
And so I found stuff that I had been good at, I couldn't do. And so it was very humbling. Anyway, there I was back on the mat with this quarter vision, and working hard. And then I was also taking Braille lessons by a completely blind person at the CNIB. At that time, they were just near Joy Station outside of Vancouver. And I had been referred there by the back of eye ophthalmologist. They were going to do operation on my eye, but they said it's too high risk. We can't help you. So go to the CNIB and then start to prepare for your demise into complete blindness, learn how to cook, meet other people in the same predicament. And then I was like, well, I better learn Braille. So I signed up for Braille, and I was going for my Braille in-person classes with a completely blind woman who was fantastic. She was a nurse, and then she lost her sight. And so prior to going to class, there was a Tim Hortons down below. And I was so mad at the God I believe in that this was happening to me. And I couldn't get over the threshold to the door to go into the CNIB. I would want to vomit. I just couldn't make myself step in. But there was another door to the Tim Hortons. So I would go early, and I would buy muffins and coffee and soup and buns, and I would stuff my face with all that. And then I was like, Kathleen, go to your Braille lessons. And then I would go in, and you have to sit there. And then this completely blind person would come downstairs from upstairs to get me. And so she would come to get me, and then she would take me upstairs with the elevator to her office. And then we'd be in the office, and then she'd give me my Braille lesson. And I would sit there, and I'd put a blindfold on and no peeking. And so anyway, I started to learn Braille. And then one day she told me that it was her birthday, and her twin sister, was giving her tap dancing lessons. And I had another epiphany, and I thought, oh my God, I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself. And here's this amazing woman who is employed. She leads this wonderful life, and she's learning tap dancing lessons. I certainly can continue with my martial arts, just keep at it. If she can do it, I can do wonderful things. And there was another man, I went to this, it's called Vision Odyssey. And it's just people who with low vision and all sorts of multiple vision problems who are going through this process of accepting. And you sit around this table, and everyone tells what's going on with them. And there was a one speaker, and he had been born blind, but he had this deep desire to learn to be a sailor and to sail the seas. And of course, nobody would teach him, but eventually he found someone willing to teach him how to be a sailor. And so he learned to sail, completely blind. I don't know how he did it. He did it. He's done it. He sails. And he was so motivating. And I thought, all right, I can become an Aikido teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a long walk back from Joy Station, where they used to be, to the West End. But, I was full of Tim Hortons muffins, and it was all my trauma. And so I would go for my Braille lessons, and then I would just walk home. I would pray and cry, and I'd get home and think, all right, what's next? And I said to my sensei, I said, look, I really want to get my teacher certificate, and I need to get my black belt. So that was my training at the Vancouver dojo. But COVID mandates happened. So all the in-person classes were stopped. So my Braille classes were stopped. My learning to cook and eat blind was stopped. And then I thought, now what am I going to do? Because if I don't keep myself busy every day, I'm going to be so depressed.
Yes,
I don't like what I might think of doing. And your world becomes so small, you become so tiny. And friends scatter, unfortunately. And so then one of my wonderful senseis, Tin Ma, that's Tin, Ma, M-A, sensei, he started during COVID to make us do a lot more. We train with a wooden sword, which we call a bokken, and a staff, which is like a long broomstick, which we call a jo. And so he started to do more sword and jo classes, and so I started working out with that. Now think about this, because I spent a long time trying to work out what exact exercise, part of the Yoshinkan Aikido, has had the most profound effect on rewiring my brain. So when we say rewiring, it sounds like a fancy term, but just think, when you couldn't walk as a baby, you
Yes.
learned to walk. So you couldn't walk, so you had a habit of not being able to walk, all right?
Mm.
Then you learned to walk, so now you have a habit of being able to walk. So it's just you create, so it takes time to connect the synapses between the neurons in your brain, and it also takes time for the structure of those connections to become very strengthened and strong over time. So just imagine you have to grow a finger in your brain. It's going to
Right.
take time to grow a finger in your brain. It's just an analogy. And so it takes time to grow that. So there's got to be a time period of
Mhm.
consistent practice in
Yes.
order for that to grow. There's no quick fix. Although
No.
we want the miracle of quick fix, even if you read your religious text, the lepers came and they were told, go and wash in the river. The man wanted to walk and he was told, take up your bed and walk. It's like,
Mm.
I'm not going to pick up your bed for you. You have to take action. You have to
Mhm.
pick up your bed and walk.
Exactly.
You had to go and wash yourself. You had to go do something. So you'll see all in the little stories, people had to do something
Yeah.
because we're so incredibly and amazingly made. If you unpack yourself right down to the atoms of you and
Yeah.
thereafter, you're just light. We're so incredible. And on that note, they've just got this technology now where they photographed a millimeter square. So a millimeter, you can't even see a millimeter
Right.
square, cubic square of human brain tissue. And within the millimeter square, cubic square, there are about, they say, because I don't know, 57,000 synaptic connections and neuronal cells. So,
Yes.
sorry, I'm going to cough.
And they can be
So,
rejuvenated, right? If it's properly focused on.
well, the enormity
Yes.
of the tapestry of what is within you. So just go back
Yes.
to that millimeter that now only they can photograph, only there, and they see that. It's like a Mandelbrot. It's like a Mandelbrot pattern. It's just like fractals. It's just like there it is, and 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 there
Yeah.
it is. It's just like, you are inside you is a cell, and inside the cell is a complete factory. And
Right.
then, within each little organelle within the cell, it just keeps going smaller and smaller and smaller. And then, so you are a cell, and then inside of you is a cell, and inside of that is something else, and it just keeps on going. And
Mhm.
then we breathe into the space of this machinery. So of course we're capable of, we don't even know what we're capable of. But I lost my train of thought. Just bring
Is
me
how you
back.
got some of your sight back.
Yeah. Um, I was trying to work out which part of the exercise, so what exact exercise am I doing in the martial arts that that had the most effect in the greatest change within me that I can do this interview today. All right. And so I'll be trying to work that out. But I do believe that it was when we started to do more weapons, because my son took me he now lives in Spain, but he was on a visit and he took me to play a game of pool. And I said, I don't know if I can play pool. I can hardly see the ball. And he said, just do your best. So I thought, okay. So I took the pool cue and I thought, well, it's just like a staff. So
Right. Exactly.
I'll put on my hip. I know more or less where the ball is. And so I'll just use my hip. And lo and behold, it worked. So I
Mhm.
played a great game. No, this is another thing. When you become practically good at stuff, people don't believe that you have limited vision. They
Right.
don't believe
Exactly.
it.
Oh,
And
you're seeing. Yes.
yeah, one man got mad at me and he called me a hustler. There was this movie with Paul Newman, I think,
Right.
that went
Yes.
around. He pretended to be blind, and then of course they won the
Mm.
pool. And I thought, oh, good heavens, like people never give up. And but that was huge for me. And I thought, oh, look at that. Okay, so that was a movement with the Joe. And then I by because when I first spoke to you in 2018, because my eyes at the time they were still newly adjusting to and I only had the bottom quadrant at that time. The right eye was always dominant and it controlled the left eye. But because the left eye now didn't have a controller, I would imagine,
Right.
it was just doing crazy things. Okay. And if I got nervous, then it would so it had no controller. So, and so obviously I was nervous for the interview. And so I couldn't control the movement of this eye. So, and then, as I shared with you in that interview, I had in my studies, they teach you about the brain, whereby if you have a green dot on a blank page, and I also read that in a book by Dr. Larry Farwell. Yeah, he invented the first brain to computer interface, and he was he practiced another form of martial arts. Yeah. So that's why, and I'd met him through a project that I was trying to create and raise money for. And he gave me his book he signed my book for me that I had bought. And he looked at the meditational practices as well. And, how did that help your brain? But in his book, it reminded me of my studies whereby he had the example of the white page with the green dot in the middle. So if you close your one eye and then you just stare and stare and stare and stare at that green dot, your brain takes what's mostly around things and it just erases that green dot. So your brain then only will see the white page. And so, and then I teach magic tricks to teachers. So nothing woo-woo. I don't invoke anything. I don't believe in that. Just step-by-step magic tricks. So if I put one ball into a cup and I then do my trick, I can multiply it into 2 balls or into a piece of chocolate. There's a step-by-step on how you do that magic trick. So I'm always trying to, and so I understand from how you fool people with magic, because if I do this, you can't stop your eye from following that.
Right.
Because it's a survival mechanism, okay? So your eye will follow that. So a magician's always going to do something here while he's doing his manipulation out of sight, all right? And he's going to use his words to distract you, because your brain he knows your brain is going to fill in the blanks with where he wants you to go, and he's going to be able to fool you. So magicians used neuropsychology and the workings of the brain to fool you. And I do that as well. And I teach the teachers why they can be tricked and fooled. And it actually is a wonderful exercise because it promotes it's conflict resolution. If you do a brain scan of what happens when people are watching a magic trick, it's the conflict area of the brain that's what lights up, because the brain loves surprises. So it's expecting
work out the
one
puzzle.
thing. Yeah, it's expecting one thing, and you're taking them along your story, and then it's in conflict because it's a response that shouldn't have happened, and then your brain is like, and it loves surprises. So it makes you think. It makes you not just accept lies, and helps you to become a more dynamic thinker. So I love to teach my magic classes for that reason, so that teachers can get children to learn to not
become sheeple.
lies. Yeah, and to question. Was that my brain or was that me wanting to look? So so I figured, all right, so if I have this black thing, and my brain, it's not actually black, your brain registers as black in the eye. What if I push that into a black lens of a particular color shade? Then my eye would start to see better, because my brain would now take the majority of what's there in this quadrant, and then maybe I can see better and keep my head up straight. And so I wear these most of the time for light, and also for that reason, because the black thing's still there. But I don't have to wear them so much anymore, because by getting my head up straight in the Aikido and by using the sword practice, my sensei would make me just cut straight, straight. And it
Right.
comes from your center of your body, not your shoulders.
Right.
So it's your elbow power down from the center, from the back heel. So you're pushing through. It's a whole movement, but it's centering your body. So over the last 6 years of training at Vancouver Dojo, been, getting that straightness inside my internal being.
Mhm.
And so my brain, although it can't see straight, it is filling in the blanks. So it can see a bit here, can see a bit there, can see a bit there, it can see some here. But so it's just ignoring now the stuff it can't see and then going straight down the center of where it can see.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do believe
So,
that.
Christian, has that helped you with your art now?
Yes,
So,
yes,
because
yes. So look
did
at
you give up your? I mean, yes, behind you, most beautiful rose, and you can see like
this
the
rose.
water.
Yeah, this rose petal. You see that big petal there?
Yeah.
So I created in 2022, so the first thing was to get my head up straight. All right.
Mhm.
So I found the working with the sword, that
Right.
was clearly keeping my head up straight and helping me with my breathing. Because I would get, as soon as I look straight, I would want to vomit. So that's a daily dealing with nausea because it's just my body's reaction to this thing in the center of my eye. But so I had to use my breath work, use my keeping my shoulders down, moving from my center, all to keep my nausea under control. All right. So that's all happening at the same time. And so but the first thing that I had to get working thereafter was my reading. So I can't scan a page of a document. I used to be a fast reader and a voracious reader. So I couldn't read anymore. And so I had to read word, 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 word,
Mm.
word. And then once again, using my hips to turn my head like a camera. Because if I move my head, then I get this nausea.
Right.
And then it's just, I just keep seeing these blobs. All right.
Right.
So I had to move my hips and my head. So now I'm sitting here talking to you. In order for me to actually see your face properly, I have to turn, because now I have the half eye vision. Okay, so I managed to get more than, so I have to turn like that. All right, now I can't live like this.
No,
So
bent
I'm,
over.
yeah,
No.
so there. But now look what happens to, if I turn my head there. So I'm hurting this part of my body and I'm cricking my neck. I'm dropping the shoulder, which then affects my waist and my hip, which would
Yes.
affect the compression in my knee and in my ankle. See how it messes up your complete
Exactly. There's not a
anatomy.
balance or alignment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, maintaining my fitness in this center that I would get from striking with the sword as an extension of my arms. And so it gives you a weight. So you've got resistance that that's also working there, and gravity. But that just to save my body posture and to stop other things from going wrong internally.
Right.
So just keeping this head up straight. And then, yeah, so,
How
um,
has it helped your art? Because your pictures are big,
yes,
right? They're
yeah.
massive. So do you have to kind of go from left to right with a straight body to see the whole canvas?
So I use my hips to turn me like a camera. Yeah, so
Mm.
what I've mastered, all right, so what I've mastered, because in social interactions became non-existent. Okay, it was just, I tried, but it became so disheartening, and people get impatient with you and they think you're deaf, so they
Yeah.
shout at you, and I'm like, I don't want to be shouted at. Like, how many times a day do I need to be shouted at? So I yeah, so now I'm looking at you, so I'm going to look at that eye, which is on my right hand side. Okay, and so which would be your left eye. And so I turn my hip there and I line up this half of my eye here with that eye of yours. All right. So using my straightness of my body from the center, from the sword training. So I move the hip slightly and there. Now I can line it up and I can connect with that eye. All right. Now I can't read the micro expressions on your face. So if you did eyebrow twitches, if you did a slight little smile or a little crinkle here, or some other movement on your face, we interact with micro expressions more than we even speak. And
Right.
so now I
Yes.
miss all that. All right.
Right.
So that's where people get frustrated with you because they don't realize that they are communicating with you with all their micro expressions, like even like little ones here and
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And you are conversing with that. And now when that's all gone, I'm now delayed because I didn't get those. All right.
You're more reliant on tone now.
Tone. Yeah.
Mm.
So I had to train myself to connect with an eye. So I
Right.
can connect with that eye with intense focus from this eye now, but I have to move away. A, it's intense for you to be stared at on that space. B, I need to relax me and I'm looking over your shoulder. All right. Now I'm listening to you. Are you happy I've connected with you? Because I also found wearing the dark glasses, and I have to wear them at night as well because lights are like laser lights for me, and my adjusting takes so long. People don't, they hate it. I found cross-culturally, people do not like it if you wear dark glasses inside.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs don't like it when you bend out to greet them with dark glasses on,
Right.
maybe because they see the reflection of the other dog. I learned to learn the hard way. Um, and you if you go out to a restaurant at night and you've got your dark glasses on, like it's just people don't like it. I have the people blurt weird stuff, like people think you've been beat up, you're hiding something.
Right.
People think you're on drugs. People think I was walking across the street the one night, it was late at night, and a man stepped in beside me and he said, "Oh, what type of person wears dark glasses at night?" And I just thought, oh my God, like where do you come from? Even just
Mm.
blurting out a comment like
Right.
that. So I was livid and I just turned to him and I said, "A person who battles with blindness." And then he was all sorry and he tried to be nice and I was just like, go away.
Yeah. You
And
need the T-shirt.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm not crazy, just blind.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not even completely blind. So in the
Yes.
community of blind people, like my teacher, Lynn was her name, she said, it's not, people write you off. I'm paraphrasing, like, oh, the blind. She said,
Yeah.
we're not the blind. We are
Right.
individuals who now belong to a community
Of
of,
sight
of a
challenged.
continuum of sightedness.
Yeah.
If you have a continuum of good, of excellent sight, and then all the way down to in the black, everybody's on the continuum of sight. We're just nearer this end,
Right.
but we're an individual, we're people. And so she said, the way around all of this is you have to start educating people. So instead
Yes.
of being a people pleaser and saying,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'll sit
Mm-hmm.
here at the table because it suits everyone else, I have to position myself if I'm at the table with the light so that it works for me. And also, if I can only see out the left half of this right eye now, anyone on this side of me, okay, I have to turn my whole body now
Body
to be
to see
seeing
them.
you. And then I've lost this one.
Right.
Or, yeah, so I need to
I
position
mean, do
myself.
you own it? Do you go in and state, what your situation is? And then
Well,
just clear the air straight away so people aren't guessing or assuming or,
yeah, you have to.
yeah.
You have, so you do it very softly,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to make a big thing about it. It's embarrassing, but also
No, it shouldn't
people,
be embarrassing, and
yeah, people
never
get
should be
weird about.
embarrassing. More embarrassing for them if I mean, look, if people are unaware, how do they care? When people are aware, then they become more sympathetic, and
Yeah,
it's not sympathy you want, but they're more sympathetic to your challenge. How
yeah,
can I meet you in your challenge? So, you know, I had a young lady on last week who is being deaf her whole life, but she lip read, so nobody ever knew, right? And they thought she was just being insubordinate because, you know, she wasn't coming when they called her. And so they found out that she had a degenerative thing going on in her ears. And she finally got hearing aids at, I think, at 17, and, you know, heard the wind for the first time. And so what she's doing right now is a bucket list of sounds, because she will go completely deaf. But that's not stopping her wanting to go into the medical industry. And she has a whole future that she wants to do. And she knows that at some point she won't be able to hear. But she wants to remember what the sounds are. So if she's feeling the wind, she can remember the sound of it, etc., etc. The more we actually embrace other people's challenges, the more compassion we have, and also the more, you know, just not only awareness, but like celebration. You look at everything that you've done. You're an artist. You're an author. You know, you've sculpture. You've learned Braille. You've done martial arts. You've always looked to, okay, well, what can I do now? How can I get around this? Okay, I'm challenged on this, but if I do that, I can do that. And that's the point. That is the point, is we all get challenges along the line, and some of them are obvious, maybe blindness and death. Other people, post-traumatic stress, and it's really hard for them to say, you know, because it looks invisible, but it's very much felt. You know, when I did your show with your brother, you know, talking very much about that, about, you know, trauma and the effect, the ripple effect that it has. It can lead to depression, and of course, doctors and drugs and everything else. It's, you know, when we hear your story and everything that you've done and all the challenges that you've had, all one can do is actually applaud you for being resilient, for like, oh God, this sucks. What am I going to do now? But the willing to ask, to listen, to learn, to apply, because that's my motto for these shows. Listen, learn, and apply. You've listened to your own body. Okay, how do I learn how to do this and that now? How do I apply it so I can still have a quality of life? I can still paint a beautiful painting. I can still co-author in books. I can still teach martial arts. I can still live. I think never, ever apologize. Ever. Own it. It is a part of you. And despite it being a part of you, this is what you've accomplished.
So learning to not apologize for my presence, you know, as a person that now might make other people uncomfortable. All right. So that was something
that's their problem, not yours.
Yeah. And so that was big for me, you know, and that was part of getting away from being a people pleaser.
Yes.
I guess my creator had to take my sight away in order for me to focus simply on me, because for the first time in my life, I couldn't take care of anybody else. I couldn't do anything. You know, right up until 2023, I had trouble cutting my own fingernails. All right. So, you know, I had to make friends with the manicurist. Because of the contrast between the nail and the skin, I couldn't see the difference in the color.
Where is it? Yeah.
And so, you know, so, you know, I had to rely on my hairdresser to take care of those things, you know, and so I had to, it was the first time that I could only concentrate on me and not being apologetic for anything that I needed. And when you lose sight, you know, I had this whole goal list of, you know, you want the house, you want the car, you want some money, you want to travel, to see stuff, you want to do this, you want to do that. And then, of course, when you're losing sight, well, where you live means nothing because you can't see it. You can't drive. Travel, well, I know people who are blind do travel.
Yes,
for me to travel to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you know, when I was thinking of being in the black, well, why would I waste my ticket? I'd rather do something else.
But it's not to see, it's to feel. Right?
To feel, yeah.
It's like you've lost the sight, but you haven't lost the feeling. So the traveling now becomes about, what am I feeling, and the senses of the
and
culture and
smelling.
everything else, and smell and
Yeah,
taste,
yeah.
right? All of
So
those become more heightened.
yeah, and so and then what you wear, so your clothes become very practical. I
Right.
certainly didn't want to wear anything that was revealing, because I didn't want to attract that type of attention, because I couldn't take, like that's just not something you want to have to deal with. And yeah, so there's a multitude of things that change in your life. So just to quickly to tie this all together, so I was back in the dojo with the sword and the jo, working with them. Definitely, I could feel that had profound effect on helping my brain to work with a bad tool in a toolbox, and was making me more practical and more capable as a human being. And
Yeah.
it was building up my self-confidence. I started to be a volunteer assistant in the kids' classes, so I was now socially integrated again in a
Mm-hmm.
capacity where I was good at something.
Right.
So yeah, and then the teaching my eye to read. Also, I wanted to finish my degree, so I used my body posture, my moving from the hips, and I just read for hours, like training my eye. But I also
Mm.
got a computer. My son bought me a beautiful computer, and I can use a touch screen, so I can
Mm-hmm.
make words bigger.
Right.
And so that touch screen, thank you to the developers who created touch screens, they saved me and helped me to get through my degree reading and my degree exams, because I was reading word for word.
Right.
I needed to just sometimes make that big.
Yes.
I didn't need it was just too difficult to make a whole section big. I just needed that word or
Yeah.
that comma or that period. And so the touch screens helped me. Yeah, so I completed. Yeah, so the Braille lessons stopped. I concentrated on the martial arts, and kept doing that. And then I got my reading to a state where I had to get extra time, but I re-enrolled and completed my degree. So that was my focus. During that time, a cataract was growing in my eye as well. So I had the
Mm.
black thing and the cataract. And so the places where I could see clearly before in the bottom quadrant and moving my head, I was losing that too.
Right.
So I was trying to finish this degree. So in 2021, just before 2021, where I live, which is community housing, I came to live here to go blind because I was told I was going blind. All these
Right.
things were happening and I was preparing for it. So this was me, and I moved into community housing, and they have a very full man with a lot of foresight who runs it. His name's Quentin Wright. And he said, we have this huge community room, and most community rooms just get wasted. They don't get utilized properly by the people in the community. He said, what if every summer, I gave a month and we turned it into a pop-up gallery, and a West End artist would get a month free of
Mm-hmm.
charge to hang their art and share it. And so I then became one of the artists who was given space when I first moved in. So I did work from before when I didn't have problems with my eyesight, and works that I'd started to do to deal with my loss of sight. And then they came up with a square exhibit. So everyone was given a square canvas. It was very small, and you had to do something, and then they were going to put it up. But while COVID happened, they couldn't do the exhibit. So I had tried during 2020, before my cataract surgery, I had tried to paint a heron. So it was a small canvas, and all I had to do was try and paint a heron. And I thought, surely I can manage that. And the more I tried to paint this heron, the more he just kept disappearing and becoming a mess. And I was praying over this canvas and crying, and it was a complete mess. So I threw it to the side, and I thought, well, that's definitely one for the trash. And that is the end of my art forever and ever. And then I had the cataract surgery in the 21. And lo and behold, we don't know why, but it seemed to clear the debris on the left half. So now I went from the bottom quadrant to getting half the eye. And I was
Mm.
like, oh my God, I can live with half an eye. All right.
Right.
I've got this half eye. So I had now had half eye of clear sight. So still the center problem, but the half eye. And then um yeah, so and then for a while, for about 3 months, my brain registered all the debris as the color of a, a, a beer, like the color of a light beer. So it's like sort of tan color.
The
And
amber
so I
color.
could, yeah, so I could sort of see through the debris in this tan color. And I thought, oh, this is a miracle. At least I can live with this, you know. But after 3 months, my brain just went back to registering that as black. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I have this beautiful half eye out of which I live my sacred life. And
What about the other eye?
that doesn't work. The
Right.
left eye doesn't work. Yeah. So that's my there. And then of course my training with the Bakken. So now this is my half eye that I can move
Right.
around. All right. So it still can't scan, still goes word for word, but it's much faster.
Right.
So I'm faster at reading because I'm moving my body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my body moves as a martial artist, even when I'm reading.
Right.
And which is remarkable. But I was still not managing. It was like those things you forget. So my body and my brain couldn't. They couldn't. I used to paint the faces of people, so that was my big thing when I was an artist before the problem, and I couldn't even paint a flower. Like my color, they had to put yellow strips on the big stairs outside my apartment because I couldn't come down the stairs. I couldn't see from one stair to the
Right.
next.
Right.
So contrasts of colors. If there wasn't high contrast, I couldn't see it.
Right.
And so, yeah, but they have beautiful gardens where I live and they have volunteer gardeners. And so what else am I going to do? So I would sit outside and I would study the petals on the flowers. And I would look at the nuances of the colors. So I spent hours studying the colors on the flowers, on the petals in different lights of day and the light going through the leaves at different times of day. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just sit studying the stuff because I was trying to get my color contrast improved. Because for a while I couldn't see a red apple in a red bowl or a white scrubbing brush on a white table. But when I went for the test with my ophthalmologist, they gave me the color contrast tests and I passed them all. But I said to him, but I still can't see the red apple in the red bowl. But I've passed all your color contrast tests.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, well, maybe it's just my brain's just forgotten. So that's
Right.
why I just sat in the garden, just looking at colors, looking at colors, looking at the nuances of the shading. And it worked. So I grew that synapses as
Right.
well. But I didn't know it was growing so well because in December 22, so I got my degree 22. In the December, thought I had a very special friend, Cindy Hops, who had helped me tremendously throughout my journey. And I wanted to make her a little Christmas present, like a card, a little painting. I thought, surely I can do something. And so this horrible little card is what happened. And it was the
Mm-hmm.
best I could do at the time. And even here, I tried to paint flowers, but I couldn't get the line straight. So I just stuck flowers on. And then I was trying to make purple and I couldn't get the color right. So I just put red and blue together. And then I gave her a poem and I gave it to her and she looked at me like I was a little bit daft because she knew my art from before. And I said, look, this is the best I can do. I can't do a straight line. I can't paint a flower. And anyway, she was such a lovely person. She accepted my gift. And anyway, but then that little square of the heron, the office said to me, we'd like it back. We want to exhibit it. And I said, I'm never doing art again. I never want to see it again. It was a traumatic piece for me. I'm never painting again. And that's it. I'm going to throw it away. But Quentin Wright was so insistent and he said, no, you've painted it and we're going to exhibit. And I said, well, I'm not coming to the opening because I don't want people talking to me about it. He said, don't come. And I said, and I never want to see it again. He said, you don't have to. I said, right, I'm going to donate it to the office. If you can sell it, go for it. But don't ever talk to me about it again because it's a trauma I don't want to relive. So off went the tiny little painting. Well, anyway, they had their exhibit. And somebody bumped into me and said, oh, somebody wanted to buy your painting. And I thought, who on earth would ever want that? So then I got a thank you note underneath my door the one day from a property manager, Sandra Martins, and she said, so-and-so has bought your painting, and because he bought your painting, we were able to buy a walker for an elderly person and some food for a family in need.
Lovely.
And I just got this goosebump flight
Yes.
through me. I was like, and in that moment, I was like, oh God, I have been so ego-driven.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, I can't paint portraits and realistic things, never going to paint again. And I was born with this talent. It's a strong family gene from my paternal grandfather. And I could always draw and paint. It was always there. But, you know, the God I believe in works through you. And here I was not allowing him to work through me because I
Yes.
couldn't manifest the things that I wanted to see.
Right.
And yet I'd created this mess. But this mess, in my eyes, the man had gone to the exhibit and viscerally, he was so moved by the painting that it changed an enormous part of his life. I then later came to be told. And the heron meant so much to him. The colors meant so much to him.
Uh-huh.
The exact way it was painted spoke to him. And who was I
Exactly.
to deny
To
God's
dictate.
voice
Exactly.
within that creation for God's other sacred heart inside that man? And so I thought, all right, I'll continue to create, but I've no idea what you want me to do. And so Sandra said to me, well, I'd like to challenge you. We'll give you space to have an exhibit. And why don't you just see what comes out of you? So I had no idea what to do. So I thought, okay, I'll just sit myself down. And because I teach people to draw, and I wrote a book on how to draw,
Right.
and so you can teach it to a 3-year-old right up to anyone of 100. It's the same basic steps, just filtered, simplified down. And I thought, Kathleen, you're going to sit yourself down and you're going to do your own drawing exercises. And one of my drawing exercises is drawing the shapes of shadows as light goes through a marble, a clear marble, or a clear little glass bead that is flat. So it's like a raindrop, all right? And so I thought, oh man, and at that point I was still having trouble just keeping my eyes focused. That was hard. It took a lot of work just to keep it focused. And so I would sit myself down, started in the December. So I gave my friend that card in December 22. And then in the January, I said, every single day I'm going to just sit down and work through my own drawing exercises. And I'm just going to go to Aikido. And so that's what I did. And as I kept drawing, obviously I was resurrecting stuff.
Yes.
And now, although it had a whole eye before, now it had half an eye, but it had the center of the martial arts. My body was moving like a martial artist. So my arm moved differently. All right. And so I started my drawing practice from a martial art energy flow within my body. So that was what was different
So
now.
out of head using spirit body. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, in 2018, I had started to do, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
I had
Person
started
hugging another person.
Yes, yes. And I had started to do, little animated shapes with no faces because I was there. That was where I was going. And also I was so learning about the energy exchange between people. And when you can't see and you meet somebody, it's not their bad. It's a natural thing. If you see something that is not unpleasant to you, you get a disgust arising inside of you, which tells you to move away from it, not to look at it, okay? Because that's a survival mechanism, all right? That's disgusting, stay away. But unfortunately, we also don't like to see or interact with people who have something that is not quite right, okay? And the same thing arises. So now when I met somebody and I started to try and interact, what I learned was some people were disgusted. They had this disgust arising in them. So that arose in them, but it was tangible. I could feel it pull
Right.
away. So
Yeah.
I could feel them meet me. And then from my visceral section of my body, I could feel them suck away. And so they pretended to want to talk to me, but it was so uncomfortable for them, so they moved away. And I was at first shocked by the powerfulness of when you learn to read energy, then you hatred. So I know what disgust feels like now.
Mm.
I know what fear feels like now. It's tangible. You can smell it. And I know
What about love?
yeah. So love is the love. So the love I only know the pure love between the love I'm giving. All right. So I know that I'm sending that pure love, let's say to your baby, and then you getting that pure love back. So in that heart space of that purity of
Yeah.
love exchange. So in that little soul embrace, that's what it's called. That's what I was going for, was that heart to heart love,
Yes.
purity. Yeah. But what was new to me was physically experiencing disgust. So the people move away. And I mean, you have to remember that without knowing unconsciously, I'm doing this too in my life because it's
Right.
part of us. But I could feel it. And then I felt hatred. I felt that coming at me. And I was like, wow, it's a real thing. So when somebody hates you, it's like an arrow coming at you. All right. So when you do martial
Which is
arts,
generally a reflection of the hate they have for themselves.
yeah,
Yes.
but it's a real thing and you can feel it. And so with martial arts, you become very sensitive, very aware of
Right.
the exchanges of the energy, coupled with my journey of sight, has made me very aware
Right.
of those energies. Yeah. So
So those sensories now can be, transported through your writings and through your art, because as I said, like when we lose one sense, the other senses become more intense. All right. And and I think that's when we tap into those other senses, especially, feeling people, feeling an aura of someone. Right. You feel that aura so much and you don't have to question it. Oh, no. This aura isn't right for me, or this aura is really wonderful. And I think, I've interviewed so many people through the years that are either disfigured, blind, deaf, many other challenges. And, as a human race, we've got to see people from the inside out and get over this stupid outside in business, because you're denying the essence of that person and the gift that they are. Like your art and everything else that you're doing, you're an example of not give up, not give in, redirect, find another way. And there are so many people stuck in their trauma, stuck in the, in the woe is me, that they're not willing to go, okay, this is just an invitation for you to go on a different journey, explore different avenues, because that's really what your real journey is about. Stop crying about what you've lost and start looking at what you can gain.
is a journey of insatiable curiosity. Insatiable curiosity. And yeah, so I know we're on a time constraint.
Yes, we are a little bit. We've almost been going 2 hours here, but
wow.
I want people to go and see your art. So of course it's right now in Vancouver from August 7th to 29th, and of course the show is coming up a little bit later. So if you are there in Vancouver, it's at 1157 Pendrell Street, Vancouver, through the access through Jepson Young Lane, but they can contact you to find out more about it. But even if you're listening to this afterwards, your art can be found on your site, which is artworkarchive.com, and profile Kathleen Caton, as you go by Caton, Tonnesen portfolio, please just come to the website here, selfdiscoverywisdom.com, and just put in Kathleen Tonnesen, Tonnesen, and you will see everything, not only the show we did before, everything about her, but her link to her books that she's co-authored, and her art, and the whole everything there, because and of course you're on LinkedIn as well under Kathleen Tonnesen, Tonnesen, and people can reach you that way. But you are a true example of never give up, never give in, find another way. So many people feel that something they've been given is something out to get them, and it isn't. It's something there just to show you your courage, your strength, your abilities, your resilience. And that when you embrace that and you truly see, look what I can do, I never knew I could do that. The illumination and the inspiration you become to other people invites them to look at their own lives instead of lassitude, but more in gratitude of what they possibly can do, which is so very important.
Absolutely. And so, having shown you the dried flower, on
Yes.
that little picture, so behind me, the relevance of this petal on this rose here is, so this is 2026. So, from previous to now, it's taken 6 years of training
Yes.
of martial arts since I went back to the dojo, in order for me to be able to, in one fell stripe, create that line on that petal that is behind
Yes.
me. And on the petal is a raindrop, and to be able to paint that raindrop with the light going through. So my martial arts has helped me to see better, to help me to socially interact better, and in
tap into your other senses.
Yeah, and and to read energies, to be very self-aware. What do I do? How does it affect other people, etc. And we have a thing called Budo, but Budo is within you, so it all goes back inside your own sacred heart. But the most important epiphany for me is that I only really had this was when my sensei Keith Taylor gave me my teaching certificate, which I got last year, 2025. As he gave it to me, I thought, oh my word, in my pursuit of trying to get my teaching certificate to teach martial arts, in my thinking to other low vision and blind people, I regained sight.
You're right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So in that pursuit of that journey, which was horrible, hard, and difficult, I regained sight by creating these new connections in my brain.
And how rewarding not only is that to you, but the hope for others. With diligence and discipline and belief, you too could, maybe they won't get it like you, but they will gain. They will gain if they're just willing to go through the experience. Yeah.
Whatever, everybody gets something to deal with, and whatever it is, but you've got to be disciplined, and you've got to keep making an effort. But if you keep at it long enough, it might take 9 years, 10 years, whatever, it will happen for you. Because
it comes down to that belief. It comes down to not just, believing, but acting on that belief, being due diligent, being persistent, being resilient. And you never know what can happen. The thing is, we are miracles. We ourselves, the way we're made, are miracles. And there's time after time, we hear stories of people who have received miracles and now can do things that they never thought they could do. And that just comes down to that belief and that action behind that belief.
Action. And just to end off, because he's my friend now, and so remember I mentioned the giant of a man full of tattoos, and I was so afraid of men at that time in Aikido. And now my whole journey, I moved away, and then I ended up at the Vancouver dojo, and that same gentleman, him and his family now live in Vancouver, and he trains at the Vancouver dojo now with me. And when he was getting his black belt, I was helping, I had the privilege of helping him and then
Yeah,
I
this is the
participated
circle of life,
in one
right?
section of his black belt. And and then he has also become a teacher. So now you've no idea of how important people are in your life, how
Right.
you'll meet them, and then you're learning lessons, um, and then they're back in your life, and so
So the
I
thing
really
there is, do not assume.
never,
Right,
never,
allow yourself to get to know people. We were taught to prejudge basically out of experience or conditioning, and it's
yeah,
just don't assume.
no,
Get to know someone's story. Right, we
yeah.
don't have the right to
So
judge. But I'm going
yeah,
to have to go now, darling. So
yeah. Thank you
it's
so
been
much.
wonderful having you back here. You really, truly are an extraordinary example of not giving up and not giving in. You're incredibly gifted. I'm so glad that you're still nurturing your gift, and despite the challenges. And it's like what I say to people: when you surrender and allow, the divine comes through you and will guide you into all that you're meant to be. And you've allowed that, and this is everything that you are now. So you keep on thriving, my darling, because you really are a wonderful example of what is possible. So thank you.
So very much for the work you do, and just for making the world so wonderful, Sarah. Thank you.
Oh, right back at you, darling. So remember, folks, never give up, never give in. There's always a way. All right. And reach out to her, have a chat, go to the art gallery. And if you can't go to her site, and you can buy her art from there, it is truly remarkable. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you to listen to right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Come and hear the illumination that's going to shed light on your path.
Find your